I will be honest, Brother Chaplain. The Fifth Company should not have left that world. The battle started simply enough. On burning wings we fell on the Eighth Legion. From our Storm Ravens and our Thunderhawks we met their claws with bladed faith. Their incessant want for theatrics made them easy to target, to pick out from amongst the gloom. They've picked a rivalry with us since the heresy, and we showed them where the true balance of power lies in that competition. Perhaps that is what led us to our rage. Throne of Terror, Brother Chaplain, I have never seen so many of us fall. Not all at once, not since the siege of Baal. It came for me too, eventually. One moment I grappled with the bastard son of Curse. The next his helmet was off and his throat was between my jaws. His blood was bitter, thick with warp stink, but I could not stop myself. When the flow had stemmed, I let the body drop. I didn't see where it landed, broken amongst the rubble. I didn't watch because my eyes were elsewhere, because I saw an angel. An angel that demanded my attention, whose simple presence pulled at the blood in my veins. An angel that looked through me, past me, to all the sons of Sanguinius with whom I share blood. An angel in black and red. It had me, Chaplain. I felt it. In my mind and my soul. This angel in black dragged the thirst and the rage, both of our curses, straight to the surface. I roared into the air, whether out of rage or in defiance of it, I still don't know. I felt it closer, its pull stronger. The sky swam with the cries of my rage-lost brethren. We were lost. We were damned. All of us. The entire Fifth Company led into ruin by mine own hands. Until this angel was split by brightest gold. A few months ago now, I posted a video on the process of kit bashing the 2024 Sanguinor model into something that fit my taste a little bit more. And even now, it's still probably one of my most in-depth conversions. I reposed pretty much all of the limbs, sculpted my own details like the fur pelt, and set the stage for a impressive basing scheme to really set this model apart. Then I got distracted by a ton of other projects, but I am finally getting around to getting some paint on this golden boy. My name's Colt, this is Gone Hollow Minis, and today we are finally painting my saintly Sanguinor. Even though I've already put quite a bit of work into this guy, there's still a ton of work to do. I'm happy with the conversion work, that can stay as is, but I don't just want to throw him on a standard base with a few basing materials thrown on. And a while back, I did just that with this Blood Angel Captain, giving him his own Night Lord to fell and putting quite a bit of work into the nice gory blood splatter. I want to do the same thing here to an extent. I want to give the Sanguinor something to conquer, to really set the miniature into a scene as opposed to just putting him on a podium. So since I had already used one of the models from this box of raptors, why not start there? I don't want this to be just another raptor though, that would be kind of unimpressive for the psychic guardian of the Blood Angels. So as usual, let's try to find our answer in the lore. Going all the way back to the Horse Heresy, the Blood Angels have portrayed their curses as a clash of angels. Their righteous virtues represented by the gleaming gold illustrated by either their father or by the Sanguinor. Their curses, the red thirst and black rage, are similarly embodied by angels. Most recently, this was discussed in the book Darkness in the Blood, where such a manifestation appears throughout. So why don't we take this raptor and transform him into a manifestation of the Black Rage? We can use those spikier chaos bits to set him apart from the rest of my Blood Angels, but give him a more impressive stature for a more impressive foe for our Sanguinor. First, we will need to do a bit of reposing. I want him to be fallen on the ground, getting introduced to the wrong end of the Sanguinor's spear. So we're going to have to remove him from his tactical rock, separate his torso from his legs, and give him a less action-oriented and more reactive pose, like he's just plunged from the sky and is curling around the spear in his chest. Now the important thing here is to make constant checks between your model and your base. Everything kind of has to work together here, both the Sanguinor, the basing details, and this fallen angel. Don't get too ahead of yourself and start making cuts that you don't need. Let's be methodical and careful here, and everything should fit together perfectly. But anyway, now that I have an idea of how he's going to fit on the base, we can work on making him look a bit more interesting. The easiest thing we can do here is ditch the jump pack for a set of wings. I don't even really know why the Sanguinor needs a jump pack, so I can guarantee that the Manifestation of the Legion's Curse doesn't need one either. These are from the Dark Eldar Scourge kit, one of the best places to find really nice looking wings, from an official GW kit at least. Like, seriously, I have used these wings on everything. Vampires, Stormcast, Space Marines now. If you can find one at a good price, I definitely recommend picking one up. But with the wings situated, we can move on to the head. I want to go for a kind of faceless hooded vibe, kind of reminiscent of the angels in the Diablo series. To do that, I just found a hooded head from the Inner Circle companion kit that I didn't really have any plans for. And rather excruciatingly, I carved the face away, smoothing it with some plastic cement until it looked the way I wanted it. But now onto building the rest of the base. I want to go for a ball theme, with some red tinged sand and some unique looking rock pillars. This basalt chunk was printed as one big piece and will give me a perfect bit of elevation to settle my winged apparition onto. I added a couple of other bits like this Death Company Dreadnought bit to further hint at the whole Black Rage Red Thirst thing, and a spare helmet I had lying around. The sand on this base is all CA glue and baking soda. This is a super versatile technique that can be used for anything from basing to kit bashing and gap filling. When the baking soda contacts the CA glue, it hardens pretty much instantly, leaving a much finer texture than something like sand or basing paste would. But now we can finally move on to painting. The big detail here is obviously the Black Angel. I really want to make sure that he doesn't just look like another Space Marine, so instead of using my usual grimdark stippling method, I'm going to go for edge highlights. After a black prime and base coat, I'm just going to go over all the edges with a couple different shades of red, starting with Wordbearers and progressing to Mephiston red. While I definitely wouldn't be doing this on regular black armor, I think it's a neat effect for this particular mini. It also really came into its own on the wings. These are kind of the focal point for this part of the base, so I really wanted them to stand out. I did basically the same thing here as the armor, making sure to catch each edge of each feather for this neat black to red effect. But finally onto the bulk of this project, the Sanguinor himself. I've already done a grimdark Sanguinary Guard video about how I paint atmospheric, weathered, warmer metallics. But like I mentioned in that video, the technique really leans into the paler bronzy colors instead of true golds. But the Sanguinor isn't just another Space Marine. He's part warp entity, part psychic imprint of Sanguinius, and to be honest, I don't totally understand all the implications of that combination, but I'm gonna assume it means he'd be a little bit more polished than your average Space Marine. So we're going to go a bit smoother with our application, and push further into warmer golds instead of cooler bronzes. To get a leg up on this, we're going to apply our first 2 layers with a dry brush. This will help apply our base coats nice and evenly, while still leaving black in our recesses. This first layer is Army Painter Rough Iron, one of my new favorite paints. It's a nice, dirty, metallic brown tone that sits on the darker side of bronze. From there, I'll be moving straight up into Scale Color Metal and Alchemy Elven Gold. Like Rough Iron, this is one of my new favorite metallic paints. I'll be working a bit more of this off of my brush, but the idea is the same. Get a bit of paint on a nice soft brush, unload a decent amount of that paint onto a plastic palette or paper towel, then take it to your model in smooth circular motions. Don't apply too much pressure. We want our bristles to skip right over our recesses and shadows, only leaving paint on the higher surfaces. But we don't want all of our shadows to be determined by dry brushing. Now that our base metallics are on, we're going to re-establish our shadows with a glaze of Scale 75 African Shadow, mixed with a tiny bit of black. Thin this down until it glazes nice and transparently, then push it into all of our recesses. Move the bristles towards our shadows, since this will deposit more pigment in those darker areas. But now that we've gotten our shadows, let's add our highlights. I'm going to have to be really careful with this, but I'm using Vallejo Metal Color Silver to just catch the highest edges and brightest parts of the armor. Things like pauldron edges, his collar, and all the little flanges that finish his armor panels. Now the good news here is that this is a lot of the model done, at least by surface area. The problem is that the rest of the details on this model are extraordinarily finicky. So many feathers. Everywhere. Belts, weapons, pauldrons, jetpacks, it's all feathers. Why did we want wings on our Sanguinary Guard again? But okay, for real, let's figure out how to tackle this. I'm definitely no expert at painting white, so I think we'll really try to lean on building up our layers slowly, trying to get the wings to a decent enough spot that we can come back in later and clean it up with some glazes. I'm going to start with an even coat of Army Painter Deep Gray. This is maybe a little bit darker than might be ideal, but after so much dry brushing, I need a nice even coat to clean up. This paint coats well, better than any white I have anyway, and is a neutral enough color to be a decent base. From there, it's just a matter of layering on increasingly bright grays and whites. I try to keep the paint fairly thin here so that it doesn't get all chalky, but I am fully intending on revisiting these areas for some cleanup anyway, so I'm not too worried about it in the long run. It's also worth noting that I'm painting the leopard pelt at the same time. Pretty much the same techniques and colors, just making sure to pay closer attention to the texture and volume of the sculpting. But with all the white applied, I'm going to go back over all of my feathers and shade them with a bit of Army Painter Night Sky, thinned to a glaze. Not only will this smooth out some of my jankier transitions, it'll also give me some nice cooler shadows in the recesses between each feather, helping them stand out a bit more. Okay, one last detail I want to really focus on. The Sanguinor is held aloft by these structural purity seals. They might be a bit over the top, but it gives me a chance to talk about how I like to paint my purity seals. I usually start with a mix of Leho Iraqi sand and leather brown as a base coat. You can use any tan or brown you have on hand, but I like how these two interact. The Iraq sand is a little yellow, which helps add a bit of visual interest, and the leather brown is a kind of desaturated hue, so it doesn't introduce too much orange or red into the mix. After that, I'll move up into pure Iraq sand. For this and the next layer, I'll be applying these highlights using scratchy lines following the sculpted texture. It's usually pretty easy to see on the Sanguinor scrolls, but usually just go perpendicular to how the purity seal is shaped. After that, I add a bit of brain matter beige to my Iraq sand and repeat the process, focusing on the higher points and more noticeable creases. After that, it's just a matter of adding some freehand to the undersides, some numerals, some blood droplets, stuff like that. Then I just filled the space between them with some dotted scratchy lines to mimic scaled text, and my structural scrolls were complete. All that was left was to stick the Sanguinor onto his base, and while I'm at it, I also mimicked the blood effect from my previous Jump Pack Captain's base. To be honest, this was a kind of awkward angle to film at, and I couldn't get a good shot as to what I was doing here, but I have gone over this whole technique previously in my Jump Pack Captain video, so feel free to check that out. But regardless, after that effect was finished up, my Sanguinor was good to go, all shiny and gold and ready to hit the tabletop, looking something like this.
There was a sound. Somewhere between a man's scream and a demon's wail, and from the Black Angel's chest sprouted a spear tip, scrawled with prayers and symbols of the Ninth Legion. The Black Angel wrenched itself from its impalement and twisted midair. I thought, for a moment, as blurred as my eyes were by rage and sweat, that it had been our father who had saved me from this thing. Misguided, I know, but I soon saw my mistake. The Sanguinor dove for the Black Angel again, spear and sword in hand, scything and thrusting and feinting in the air like the angels we all aspire to be. The Black Angel's gnarled gauntlets malformed into claws, swiping harmlessly at the Sanguinor's golden plate. Always a hair's breadth away, never even scathing that holy visage. Eventually, the Sanguinor seemed to grow tired of this dance. Its wings fluttered, its jump pack flared, and he dove at the Black Angel with sudden ferocity. Ferocity not even that thing could match. The encarmined sword in the Sanguinor's hand opened a grinning rent in the angel's plastron, and with another screech, it fell. The Sanguinor was after it, lowering himself towards the battlefield in a vertical descent. Before the Black Angel could recover, he pierced its chest again. The thing curled around the wound, shrieking and swiping with its claws. It leaped cruel in a gravity-defying gush, pouring itself into the air. I felt the thirst fade. The rage subsided. And as I blinked, they were gone. Both the gold and the black disappeared into the blood-tinged sky.
Thank you all so much for watching. This paint job has been a long time coming, so I hope it was worth the wait. I definitely think it's one of my most impressive kit bashes and paint jobs yet. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like and leave a comment to let me know what you think. Subscribe to Gone Hollow Moonies to stay up to date with all of our stories that we have coming up, and of course, until next time friends, be safe, be kind, and don't you dare go hollow.